અવાજ આવે છે? યુટ્યુબમાં જો અવાજ આવે છે. યસ મેમ, તમે કરો. Yes. Hello everyone. Good afternoon to all. As we know that today we have with us Mr. Parth Joshi as a resource person for this NET GSET guidance lecture series organized by Department of English, Maharaja Krishna Kumar Siji, Bhavnagar University. Welcome, sir. We are glad to hear with you, and as I am here to introduce you that Parth Joshi sir currently working as an assistant professor and head of the Department of English at Government Arts and Commerce College, Babra, Gujarat. He is also, we can say, cracked GSET, NET, and the GPSC exam in the very first attempt, and many more, we can say, the achievements in the research and the publications. Sir, we are again welcome you in this lecture series, and I hope that this session will be enlightening for all the students. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Department of English, MKBU. I believe I'm audible and visible both, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So two things at the very outset. Number one, we are... Okay, do I see somebody has unmuted?
કરો તો કરો આપો કેમ બે ઓલું થાય છે ઓકે
All right. There's silence now, and let silence prevail this way. Two things at the very outset. It's very pleasing. It's very pleasant to see all these faces out there in the lab sitting. I have had very fond memories of MKBU English department during my 2 years of stay at Taraja Government College. So it's very refreshing and pleasant to be, albeit virtually, back to this department. And my best wishes to all the MA students and NET and SET aspirants at the very outset. We have already been late due to all the technical glitches that have taken place. So let us not waste time anymore. My topic today is Indian Poetics and Overview. The topic itself implies that Indian Poetics is such a wide branch of study that today, in these 40-45 minutes given to us, we will be only able to have an overview, a very, very superficial overview of the topic. So I believe all of you are all set to go. Shall we begin? All right, next slide, please. Let me chart out the challenges and limitations that we have in studying Indian Poetics for examinations like NET and SET in the very beginning. See, when we say Indian Poetics, we are trying to cover a whole branch of knowledge which is as old as 4,000 years. No, the roots of Indian Poetics lie all the way in Rig Veda. Rig Veda is almost dated to 1500 BCE. That is almost 4,000 years from today. So what we are going to be trying to do is we are trying to cover something as old as 4,000 years in a span of 40 minutes. Right? Secondly, when we say Indian poetics, we have to think about the term Indian itself. This term Indian in Indian poetics is a very problematic term, and many scholars have discussed these problems. I'm trying to brief you about some of these problems in the very beginning. The first problem is, about language, because those of you who have studied Indian poetics, or those of you who have at least glanced through a few topics of Indian poetics, know that most of the terms and concepts we study therein are Sanskrit terms and Sanskrit concepts. So, actually, does Indian poetics always mean Sanskrit poetics? Why then we as students of English are studying this particular branch, right? So, and what does Indian include? For example, today when we say Indian poetics, we are trying to cover all these things that you see in the subpoints given below. Indian poetics includes the Tamil Sangam poetics, which is probably said to be even older than the Vedas, the Sangam poetics. And then, of course, as I told you earlier, that it is believed that the seeds of Indian literary thought lie in the Rig Veda. In the Rig Veda, you have hymns like the Vak Sukta, which is addressed to the goddess of speech. And therein, it is said that the goddess of speech is submerged in the ocean, and just like the inner meanings of a poem come out layer by layer, the goddess of speech also comes out layer by layer, something like this said in the Vak Sukta. This is in the Rig Veda, probably the 10th mandal of Rig Veda. And then you have the Usha Sukta, for example. Why I'm giving the example of Usha Sukta is because it's a brilliant example of what we call ornamentation in poetry, alankara, alankarana, figuration in poetry. So, what we learn is that ornamentation or literariness in literature, in poetry, is as old as Rig Veda, and therefore the thought of literariness is also as old as Rig Veda. Then in the Upanishads, we have statements like Raso Vaisaha. This is from the Taittiriya Upanishad. And then, scatteredly, if we go in Shankar Vedanta, that is in the Vedanta of Shankaracharya, you have the concept of Sat Chitan Ananda. Ananda is bliss. The concept of aesthetic bliss is likened to the concept of Ananda. Then if you traverse through the history, we have, after the 10th century, we have Amir Khusro, Al-Baduni, Ghalib, all these people, from the 10th century onwards to the 14th, 15th century onwards, who have written in languages like Persian, but they were scholars and thinkers that happened in India. And therefore, they are also to be included in Indian poetics. And they have all very well defined certain aesthetic concepts, let me tell you. Then we have Pandit Jagannatha. You might have heard about the concept of Ramaniyata in the 17th century. That was roughly during the time of Jahangir and probably Shah Jahan. After the arrival of the Britishers, we had English education. So in the 20th century, we have Indian scholars in English, Indian thinkers who are writing about theories and concepts of Indian poetics in English. So we have people like Hiriyanna, Sri Aurobindo, Rabindranath Tagore, Ananda Kumaraswamy, etc. And of course, from the 16th, 17th century onwards, we have had uh, theorization about literature in the vernacular Indian languages like Gujarati, Marathi, Bengali, etc. And of course, in the 19th and 20th century, it's in some way it reaches its pinnacle. The criticism and literary theory in vernacular Indian languages like Gujarati, Marathi, etc., reaches its peak. So when today we talk about Indian poetics, we are, including a conglomerate of all these things that have taken place over several thousands of years, and which is why it is a very tough task. So my teacher used to say, that we actually begin Indian poetic syllabus with Bharat and we end it with Jagannath. But that is not the case, because Bharat is not the first poetician and Jagannath is not the last one. Bharat himself actually in Natya Shastra mentions names of 4 or 5 thinkers that have happened before him. So we have a very, very concrete textual proof that Bharat is not the first one, although he is designated as the first formal thinker on Indian poetics, the writer of or the composer of Natya Shastra, because he mentions names like Shilalin, Nandikeshwar, etc. in Natya Shastra itself. So he says that these are the acharyas who have already theorized on dramaturgy before him, right? And after Jagannath, as I told you, we have many others who wrote in Sanskrit, in vernacular Indian languages in the 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th century, and in Sanskrit as well. The thought and the theorization on poetics continued in India. So usually when we discuss Indian poetics, we have the river metaphor. Indian poetical tradition, Indian critical tradition is always likened with a river, a flowing river like Ganga. You see what happens? A flowing river emerges somewhere, and then as it flows, many tributaries and distributaries join the flow. They merge with the flow from various places. Then at certain places, certain distributaries, they hide themselves, they get concealed because of certain reasons. And again, at certain other places, certain other distributaries again merge, and that is how the river flows. So Indian critical tradition is likened with a flowing river. When we say flowing river, we talk about all these traditions, right from the classical Tamil tradition to the Indian English tradition, and of course, even the Sanskrit and vernacular traditions that I just mentioned. However, for your NET and GSET syllabus, we have to understand that Indian poetics is equal to Sanskrit poetics, because the syllabus that is formally given to us at MA level or at MPhil level or for NET and SET consists of nothing before Bharat and nothing after Jagannath. Unfortunately so, however. Yes, next. So when we consider thinkers from Bharat to Jagannath, we have 7 schools of Indian poetics. Each of these schools has 1 or 2 main thinkers and then other subsidiary thinkers who have also written on that concept. But the main credit of theorizing goes to one thinker, and that particular thinker has composed or authored a text, right? So this is probably the most important for your MCQ in NET and SET. Which are the 7 schools? Who are the corresponding thinkers of these 7 schools, and what are their works? Next. This I have taken from Professor Kapil Kapoor's Indian Conceptual Framework, Literary Theory, Indian Conceptual Framework, which is a very important reference book. I'll show you towards the end of this session. If you see the leftmost column, you have 7 schools given there: Rasa, Alankar, Riti, Dwani, Vakrokti, Gunadosha, and Auchitya. These are the 7 major schools of Indian poetics. Some people also say that Ramaniyata of Jagannatha is the 8th school, and therefore they say that there are 8 schools of Indian poetics. Ramaniyata of Jagannatha is also considered as a school. Now, Rasa school, as you can see, has Bharat Muni as its foremost thinker, and his text is called Natya Shastra, which was composed around 2nd century BC. Also Dhananjaya, Dhanika Dhananjaya variations of name, his text Dasharupaka is also a very very significant text, 10th century AD text for Rasa school. For Alankara school, Bhamaha is the pioneering thinker, and Kavya Alankar, 6th century, is the foremost text. And later we have thinkers like Dandi, Udbhat, Rudrat, etc. And their texts like Kavya Darsha, Kavya Lankara Sara Sangraha by Udbhat, and Kavya Lankara by Rudrat. The slide is gone. Yes. So Rasa, Alankar. Then third one, Riti. Riti school by Vaman. The text is Kavya Alankara Sutra, 9th century. Dwani school, Anandvardhan, the foremost thinker, Dwani Aloka. It's a very famous text. You might have all heard about it. Dwani Aloka of 9th century AD. Then, of course, Abhinav Gupta, the 10th century scholar, has written Dwani Aloka Lochana, that is a criticism of Dwani Aloka, and Abhinav Bharati, two texts by Abhinav Gupta. Mahim Bhatta, Vakti Viveka is the text, 11th century AD. Mahim Bhatta is a very important thinker on Rasa also and on Dwani also, both. Vakrokti, we have Kuntaka's Vakrokti Jivitam, 11th century. For Gunadosha, Dandi and Bhamaha, these both thinkers, their texts already mentioned above, Kavya Darsha and Kavya Lankara, are considered important. And Auchitya school, the pioneering thinker is Kshemendra, and his text is called Auchitya Vichara Charcha, 11th century AD. This is some stuff, some real important stuff for your MCQs. The 7 schools, their corresponding thinkers, and which thinker has written what work, which thinker has composed. See, written is a wrong word because there was no writing as such. It was composing, authoring and composing. So what text was composed by which thinker? Okay, this is something you will have to memorize. Yes, I'll come to all these 7 schools gradually. What do these terms mean and what do the... in brief, Rasa means aesthetic emotion, Alankar means figures of speech or figurative devices. Riti means style, stylistics. Dwani means suggestive meaning or the indirect meaning. Vakrokti is an oblique way, a slant way of stating something. Guna means merits, dosha means demerits, and auchitya is propriety. Okay, next. Now, 4 or 5 thinkers and their texts, which are called Sangraha texts. These Sangraha texts means these are texts which are a compilation of the thoughts of the previous thinkers. These texts are not based on any one school, but they are, a kind of commentary, or they are a kind of textbook, a compendium, which gives you a sort of elucidation, explanation about various schools of Indian poetics. It includes Rasa, Dwani, Alankar, Vakrokti, etc. Okay, so they are not texts belonging to any one school of Indian poetics, but they are in a way miscellaneous texts, but very very important in the tradition, because actually we have names like Mammata's Kavya Prakasha or Vishwanatha's Sahitya Darpana, which is sometimes so very important for students of Indian poetics that students don't read the original Natya Shastra or Dwanyaloka. They rather understand Bharat Muni and Anandvardhan from Mamata's Kavya Prakasha. And till date, Kavya Prakasha remains to be, you might know, or probably you may ask your Sanskrit friends that even today, Mamata's Kavya Prakasha is a text prescribed at UG level in Sanskrit. For BA Sanskrit people, Mamat's Kavya Prakasha, a few chapters are a part of undergraduate syllabus. You see, such a very important text. So Rajashekhar's Kavya Mimamsa, Bhojaraja's Saraswati Kanthabharana and Shringara Prakash, two texts, Mamata's Kavya Prakash, Vishwanatha's Sahitya Darpan, and Jagannatha's Rasa Gangadhar. These are the major Sangraha texts. This is also something I've taken from Professor Kapil Kapoor. Had we had some more time, we could have certainly discussed maybe one or two peculiarities of each of these texts. Each of these texts is a very, very rich text, very rich text. To give you just one example, Kavya Prakash, the Kavya Hetu, the discussion about purposes of writing literature is given. Purposes of writing literature. Kavyam Yashase Arthakrute Shiveta Rakshate, so very well elucidated by Mamata. This gives us an idea that these thinkers could match any good Western theoretician on literary theory. It's unparalleled thinking on the topic. Yes. Next slide. Uh, if what I'm saying makes sense to the students, just give me a thumbs up. I hope you are not getting bored. All right. Even if you are getting bored, you are doomed to be there for another half an hour. You can't do anything about it, right? All right. Let us take one by one the 7 schools now. The first one and the most popular one is the Rasa school or the Rasa theory. Rasa means emotion. In very brief, again, I'm going very brief. Rasa means emotion or aesthetic delight. One thing that we should understand is that emotions could be positive or negative. We have some positive emotions like happiness, joy, etc. And then there are some negative emotions like sorrow, anger, etc. But when we use the word rasa or aesthetic delight, sometimes rasa is translated more correctly as aesthetic delight. When you experience the aesthetic emotion, you have a sense of delight. That aesthetic delight is rasa. And aesthetic delight can be positive or negative both. See, when Valmiki kills the pair of Kroncha Pakshi in Ramayana, this is how the composition of Ramayana happened. Valmiki saw the hunter killing the Kroncha birds, and then he had a shloka spurring spontaneously from his mouth. The emotion that he experienced was that of pathos, karun, which is a negative emotion. But the feeling is that of aesthetic delight. When we worship goddess Durga, and let us say we have something like Mahishasur Mardini Stotra, Aigiri Nandini, this Mahishasur Mardini Stotra is actually depicting the Raudra form of goddess Durga. Slightly negative emotion. But when you experience that emotion, the feeling of delight does happen, right? Even when Hamlet dies and we feel sorry, we feel pained, we feel sorrow, what we are experiencing is an aesthetic emotion and a feeling of aesthetic delight, which is rasa. And therefore, rasa is not just positive emotions, it is also negative emotions. This is something we need to remember. So the emotion could be negative, but rasa is always delightful. Natya Shastra, 2nd century CE text, where we believe that in chapter 6 and 7 of Natya Shastra, Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, we have the first and foremost description, or the first and foremost proposition of the Rasa school. You must have heard sentences like nahi rasadhyate kaschid arthah pravartate, no meaning exists without rasa. These are all sentences from Bharat Muni's chapter 6. Please remember and note down that chapter 7 of Natya Shastra, by the way, there are 33 total chapters. This was a question in GSET 2021 or 22, if I am not mistaken. How many chapters are there in Natya Shastra? There are 33 chapters in Natya Shastra. Out of them, chapter 6 and 7 are dedicated to the discussion of rasa and bhava. Interestingly, rasa comes from bhava, but Bharat Muni discusses rasa in chapter 6 and bhav in chapter 7. Rasa in chapter 6 and bhava in chapter 7. Although rasa comes from bhava, Sthai bhava gives rise to rasa. So, chapter 6 and 7. Now, the famous Rasa Sutra of Bharat Muni, Vibhava, Anubhava, Vyabhichari, Samyoga, Rasa Nishpatti. Many of you might have heard it. So, we are going to discuss in very brief these terms: Vibhav, Anubhav, Vyabhichari Bhav, Sthai Bhav, and Rasa Nishpatti. 5 terms. These are 5 technical terms in Rasa theory. Please remember, the discussion of all these terms runs through almost 1000 years of critical tradition. These terms are interrogated and cross investigated again and again at regular intervals of time by several thinkers in Indian poetics. But what we are going to see, because it is for MCQ mode, what we are going to see is MCQ based. It's going to be based on Natya Shastra. So emotions or bhavas are states of mind, psychological states of mind. These bhavas are of 2 types: sthai and asthai or sanchari. Sthai bhavas are dominant states of mind. Any normal human being has eight dominant states of mind, permanent states of mind, like rati, shok, karuna, uh, anger. These are all emotions that all of us have. In normal life, one or the other emotion becomes kind of dominant in a given situation. Okay, so these 8 are sthai bhavas. In the next slide, we will have a list of them. We will see. These sthai bhavas ultimately get converted into rasa. But how? Through a mixture or a combination or sanyog of vibhav, anubhav, and vyabhichari bhav. Next slide. These are the 8 sthai bhavas as given by Bharat, and the 9th sthai bhava, Shama, which gives rise to Shant Rasa, was added by Abhinav Gupta. 8 sthai bhavas all of us will have. Any normal, psychologically normal human being will have these 8 sthai bhavas. Let us take the example of Rati or love. And let us take the example of Dushyant and Shakuntala, a classic example that is given at MA level. Both Dushyant and Shakuntala They have the sthai bhava of love, of rati, at the back of their mind. And ultimately, this rati is converted into Shringar Rasa. How? Through Vibhav, Anubhav, and Vyabhichar. What is Vibhav? Vibhav is determinants, the deciding factors of the rasa. Determinants or deciding factors. These vibhavas can be characters, that is alambana vibhav, or situations, uddipana vibhav. Characters. So who is acting out the rati bhava? Dushyant and Shakuntala. So the bhava is an abstract thing, but the bhava has to enter into somebody, no? So the bhava enters Dushyant and Shakuntala. So they become the alambana. They carry the bhava. So they become our alambana vibhava. And uddipana vibhava is situations. For example, when Dushyant sees Shakuntala for the first time in the ashram of Kanva Rishi, it's a very, very romantic environment. You can read Abhigyan Shakuntalam first act to see this, all forest all around and flowers, and you have the Madhukara, that is the honey bee, all that creates or, accelerates, accentuates romance. So the situation becomes the uddipana vibhava. Then anubhava. Anubhava is acting out the bhava. So some actor has to act out that bhava. How? Angika, Vachika, Aharya, and Satvika. 4 ways. So Anubhava is acting out expression of the bhava. How? Angika, through body language, body movement. Angika. Vachika, Vacha, speech, through dialogues. Third, Aharya, through makeup and costumes. And fourth one, Satvika. Satvika are involuntary movements of the body. These are the 4 types of Anubhava. So you have the Vibhava, you have the Anubhava, and you have the Vyabhichari Bhava or the Sanchari Bhava. Sanchari Bhavas are temporary bhavas which come and go. For example, if you have Shringara or romance or love between the Nayak and the Nayika, the hero and the heroine, the dominant, the sthai bhava is of love. But in the romance of the hero and heroine, you will also have slight bit of anger, रूठना, मनाना, छेड़ना, गुस्सा होना, right? These are the sanchari bhavas, the vyabhichari bhavas. Through a mixture of all these 3, the vibhavas, the anubhavas, and the vyabhichari bhavas, the rasa is evoked. The rasa nishpatti happens. This is the classic Rasa Sutra given by Bharat in the 6th chapter of Natya Shastra. As I told you, these terms demand more and more of explanation and explication, but this is at a very, very superficial level that we have tried to understand them. Next slide. The Dwani school. The second school is the Dwani school of Anandvardhana. 9th century scholar thinker, and his text is called Dwanyaloka. Anandvardhan considered Dwani as the soul of literature. Please forgive me for the misspelling of Dwani in the second point. It should be Dhvani and not Dhavni. Anandvardhan said that Shabda Shakti, words have a threefold power of meaning making. any word or any utterance can have meaning at three levels. The first level is called abhida, or lexical meaning or dictionary meaning. The second level is called lakshana, the figurative meaning or the connotative meaning. And the third level is called vyanjana, the suggestive meaning. Suggestive meaning. This vyanjana gives rise to a meaning which is called vyangyartha, and this vyangyartha is equal to dhvani. So abhidha is the lexical level, and it gives rise to lexical meaning which is called abhideyartha. Lakshana is the figurative level which gives rise to lakshyartha, the figurative meaning, slightly deeper than abhidha. And then the deepest, according to Anandvardhan, is Vyanjana, the third layer, the deepest layer, the most indirect way of rendering meaning to an utterance, which is called Vyangyartha. You also know that Anandvardhan associated Dwani with Rasa. So, out of all the categories, Rasa Dwani, that Dwani which helps you realize the Rasa, such suggestivity, such Vyangyartha, which helps you realize the Rasa of the composition, is the most superior type of Dwani. Most superior type of Dwani. Let me give an example from Animal Farm. Most of you have studied this novel in your second year, probably, right? In Animal Farm, you know that the animals are not animals, they refer to something else, right? But we can read the novel considering the animal as animals, and we can read the novel as a fable, animal story. If we read the novel as a fable, as a story of animals, we are going by the abhidha level, the lexical level, where old major is old major, Napoleon is actually Napoleon, right? And boxer is actually boxer, just a horse and nothing more. But that will be the abhideyartha of Animal Farm. If we go slightly deeper into the novel, we will see that each of these characters, there is, Orwell is using figuration. He is alluding to some historical character. You know that old major actually allegorically represents Karl Marx. Boxer represents the proletariat, the working class, the exploited class of the society. Napoleon, on the other hand, represents the bourgeois class, the aristocratic class of the society, right? So we are going by what each of these characters indicate the figuration. And then we have the vyanjana, the meaning that arises when constantly we see that each character is not a character in itself, but it reverberates or it echoes some other character, some other socio-cultural political context. The meaning that we get out of Animal Farm is the suggested meaning. Orwell is not just talking about animals and the rules of animals getting changed. He is talking about the Communist Manifesto. He is talking about the Marxist Revolution. He is talking about the Bolshevik Revolution of Russia. He is talking about how the proletariat was exploited in those days. He's talking about at the end of the novel when he says all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal. He's actually talking about how this entire revolution turned out into a fiasco. Right? So what we encounter then is the Vyangyartha, the suggestive meaning. One peculiar quality of suggestive meaning or Dwani like sound, Dwani has Anuranan, a technical term in Dwani theory. Anuranan. Anuranan is reverberation, constant echoing of something else, some other meaning, intertextuality. Okay, this Anuranana is a typical feature of Dwani Kavyas. Anuranana or echoing, reverberation of some other indirect meaning. This much for Dwani school because time permits only this much. Third one, Vakrokti. Kuntak, 10th century Kashmiri scholar. Name of the text is Vakrokti Jivitam. Kuntak juxtaposes Vakrokti with Swabhavokti. Swabhava, Swabhavika, matter of fact, plain way of stating something. As against that, Vakrokti is a slightly vakra, oblique, slant way of stating something. Emily Dickinson says, tell it slant. Poetry tells things in a slant way, in an indirect way. This is what Kuntak calls Vakrokti. His definition of Vakrokti is that Vakrokti is Vaidagdhya Bhangi Bhaniti. Bhaniti is a mode of expression. Vaidagdhya is cleverness, deftness, and Bhangi is breaking, bending something. Bhanga, to bend. Niyam bhang karna, to bend the rules. Okay. So, therefore, Vakrokti is a clever or knowing mode of expression or Bhaniti. To bend a plain statement in such a way, very deftly, skillfully, poetically, that it becomes poetry and not just a news article, right? One example that we can rush through in 30 seconds is that, and this is an example again, something that my teacher told me, if you see a beggar sitting, if you see two beggars, two beggars sitting outside a temple or somewhere on the road, both of them are blind. Imagine both of them are blind. Both of them are having placards in their hands. एक प्लेकार्ड के ऊपर लिखा है, आई एम ब्लाइंड, प्लीज गिव मी सम मनी. दूसरे प्लेकार्ड पे लिखा है, इट इज अ ब्यूटिफुल डे आउट देयर बट आई कैन नॉट सी इट. Which of these two beggars will you be tempted to give some money to? Probably the second one, right? Why? Both of them are saying the same thing, but the second beggar is bending the matter of fact statement in a poetical manner. The first beggar, when he says, I am blind, please give me some money, he is using Swabhavokti. The second beggar, when he says, it's a beautiful day out there, but I cannot see, he is using Vakrokti. This Vakrata, obliquity, is of 6 types or 6 levels. It operates at phonetic level, Varna Vinyasa Vakrata. Again, let me come to, for instance, Mahishasur Mardini Stotra, since it is Navaratri. So take the first stanza, at least first 2 lines, some of you might remember. Ai Giri Nandini Nandita Medini Vishwa Vinodini Nandinute. Just imagine, कितनी बार नी आता है फर्स्ट लाइन में. आई गिरि नंदिनी नंदित मेदिनी विश्व विनोदिनी नंदिनुते गिरिवर विंध्य शिरोदि निवासिनी विष्णु विलासिनी जिष्णुनुते. सी, वर्ण न जो वर्ण है उसको कितनी बार रिपीट किया गया है just for the sake of beauty. And if you read this entire hymn, you will see that happening across so many stanzas in Mahishasur Mardini Stotra. This is a beautiful example of Varna Vinyasa Vakrata. Obliquity operating at phonetic level, at the level of sounds, Varnas. Lexical level, Pada Purvardha Vakrata. Pada Purvardha. This is related to the prefixes, basically affixation. Affixation. Pada Parardha Vakrata is related to tense, gender, etc. The technical or grammatical aspects of the pada, the word, the base word. Vakya Vakrata, the most common type of Vakrokti. When you, like I said, it's a beautiful day out there and I cannot see. Right? Bending the entire sentence into something else. Vakrokti at the sentential level. Then you have Prakrana Vakrata. These days, when we have mythological renderings, re-renderings of mythological or itihasa texts, certain chapters or certain episodes are changed. For example, Chitra Banerjee's Palace of Illusions, right? Or let us say, I think it was Palace of Illusions. I have not. Or her depiction of Draupadi, for example. If you want an example from Sanskrit, we have, for example, Bhas, Sanskrit Kavi Bhas, his play Karnabharam, where his play Urubhangam, one act play, mono act, one act play, where it's a play about Duryodhan, where Duryodhan is made the hero rather than villain. See, Prakrana Vakrata. The Duryodhan Bhim, the death of Duryodhan episode from Mahabharata is picked up and it is given a different turn. And the entire play is based on that. Or Karnabharam, where Karna is made a hero. By the way, in Urubhangam, Duryodhan ka naam kya hai? Suyodhan. Not Duryodhan, Suyodhan. He is a hero. Right? And in Karnabharam, Karna is made a hero. So the Kavach Kundal wala episode, where Indra comes and takes away the Kavach Kundal of Karna, and he is like he's betrayed, and therefore his death is a big shadyantra, big conspiracy by the devatas. That is what Bhas proves. Changing one episode, one incident, right, and creating something new. And compositional level, when the entire composition is changed. The entire composition is changed. It is given a different turn. Then it is Prabandha Vakrata. For those of you willing to do your PhDs, by the way, adaptation is also one type of Vakrata or Vakrokti. Okay, just one sort of hint for some of you who might want to navigate through this topic further. Adaptation, series adaptation, movie adaptation of certain works is also a kind of Vakrokti because it falls under either of these six levels. Next, please. Alikar School, Bhamaha, 6th century. The work, as I showed you in the previous slide, the name of the text is Kavya Alankara. Bhamaha distinguishes between the body and the soul of literature. So he categorizes alankaras or figures of speech into two types, Shabda and Artha. So you have Shabda Alankaras and you have Artha Alankaras. Shabda Alankaras deal with sound. and Arthalankaras deal with meaning. For example, uh, alliteration. Alliteration is a Shabdalankara because it deals with sound. Those of you who have studied Gujarati in 11th and 12th as first language, Yamaka, Yamakalankar also deals with sound. So it's a Shabdalankara. But something like metaphor, it's an Arthalankara because it deals with meaning. It is the meaning is ornamented. You are not ornamenting, you are not decorating the words or the sounds. The poet is working at the level of meaning in metaphors, metonymy, etc. So these are called Arthalankaras. Only that much about Alankara school. We have paucity of time. Next slide. And I have 3 more schools to deal with. The Riti school. Riti school is about stylistics, style of writing. Style of writing. Vamana, 8th century thinker. 8th century thinker Vaman. His text is Kavya Lankara Sutra. It is there in the table that I showed you earlier. Vaman says that Riti style mane Vishishta Padarachana. Vishishta Padarachana. Specific arrangement of words in a sentence is called Riti, the style. And that is true. See, how do we come in net and GSETs? Sometimes this is a question. You are given a random passage from a novel, let us say a Victorian novel, a random passage, and then you are told this passage is taken from which novel, and you have 4 options. How do you try to guess? Of course, we look at the content, we look at the theme, but we also look at the language. We say कि ये Dickens की language नहीं हो सकती. This is Jane Austen's language, or this is not James Joyce's language. This can never be James Joyce's language. This could be either Thomas Hardy or Dickens or Emily Bronte. So how do we go about answering such questions? We look at the padarachana, the style, how words are used, how they are arranged, what is the tone, how the words are structured in a particular sentence. That is Riti. There are 3 types of Riti, basic types: Vaidarbhi, Gaudi, and Panchali. Out of which Gaudi is considered the most complex, and Vaidarbhi probably the most fluid, the most easy to comprehend. Vaidarbhi Riti. And Panchali the most easy, Gaudi the most complex, and Vaidarbhi is average in between both. There are specific descriptions about each of the 3 ritis, like how is Vaidarbhi riti, what are the gunas included in Vaidarbhi riti, how is Gaudi riti, what are the gunas and doshas there, what is Panchali riti. When you read about Riti school in detail, you will come to know all these things, but for MCQ's sake this much is sufficient. Yes, next slide. Guna and dosha school. Actually, this is not a school, these are just topics. I seriously doubt if this can be considered a school, a separate school of Indian poetics, because guna means a positive quality, a kind of excellence that adds beauty and grace to a composition. And you have, for example, the following list of gunas: Shlesha, coalescence of words; Prasada is clearness; Samta is evenness; Samadhi is superimposition; Madhurya, it's actually Madhurya, okay, Madhurya, sweetness; Ojas. Then there is some error there. I've copied this list from Google, but it should be Kanti. There's some typo error. It's Kanti, smoothness. Arthavyakti, Udara. Oh, Kanti is already there. And there is something else. I'm sorry. I'll get back to you with the correct word. And then there are doshas, the demerits. Next slide. A negative element or a flaw. For example, apakrama, shabdahinata, yati bhrashta, bhinna vritta, visandhi. These are highly technical terms. Don't worry. They'll not be asked in your net and set examinations. Okay. But this is basically meant for students of or scholars of Sanskrit. What we have to remember is gunas are positive qualities, doshas are negative elements or flaws in a literary composition. This much only. So, which is why this is not a well charted out, thought out school, and therefore the very existence of this school as a separate school is questionable. Anyway, this is there in the list that is given by scholars. And the last one, the seventh one, the Auchitya school. Auchitya is propriety. Propriety. Kshemendra. Kshemendra is the theorist, the thinker, and Auchitya Vichara Charcha is the text. In Auchitya Vichara Charcha, he gives 27 types of Auchitya. Propriety. Right? Propriety of phrase, propriety of sentence, propriety of meaning, propriety of qualities, propriety of rasa, propriety of case, gender, number, etc. So many. 27 types of propriety. Basically, when you take a composition as a whole, suppose a poem as a whole, using the most befitting word at the most befitting place is propriety. See, there are so many synonyms available for a word. But the poet, a good poet, a great poet is one who uses the most befitting word in the most befitting context, which gives rise to the most befitting way of, vakrokti, the most befitting way of indirect statement, and therefore gives rise to the rasa. So Auchitya is considered to be probably, the most important school, because without Auchitya, all the other schools will have no meaning. You understand, right? If the appropriate word is not used at the appropriate place, then meaning will go haphazard. Then how can you expect rasa nishpatti to happen? How can you expect all these, abhida, vyanjana, lakshana to happen? Taking again the same example, the Mahishasur Mardani Stotra example. If you go to the second stanza of Mahishasur Mardani Stotra, it is written, Adi Shankara says, Suravara Varshini, Durudhara Dharshini, Duramukha Marshini, Harsharate. Shakti or Durga or Mahishasur Mardini, she is Suravara Varshini. She showers blessings, Varsha, shower, showers blessings on the Suravara, on the Devatas. And she kills the Durdhara, the demons. She is Tribhuvana Poshini, Shankara Toshini. Poshana, by the way, happens through rains. Because of rains, you have grains. Through grains, you have food. So she is Tribhuvana Poshini. In the first line, you have reference to rain, Varsha. It's a showers of blessings, but although there's a reference to rain, so you see how that rain is linked to food and poshana. And Shankara Toshini, Gilmisha Moshini, Gosharate. And then in the third line, she is called Sindhu Sute. and Durmada Shoshini. Durmada is Durbuddhi. Shoshini, Shoshan karvu, to make something evaporate. So she is somebody, the goddess, makes the Durbuddhi, the Durmada, evaporate. Sindhu Sute. Suta is daughter, and Sindhu is Samudra. Samudra ki daughter is Lakshmi, which is an incarnation of the goddess. But why does he use Sindhu Sute only? He could have used any other name of any other goddess. Because in the lines above, we are talking about rain, we are talking about evaporation, we are talking about showers. All this is connected to Samudra, ocean. And therefore, the name Sindhu Suta makes more sense. It has more auchitya there rather than any other word for the goddess. And therefore, the Vakrokti becomes all the more appealing. And therefore, the Dwani is achieved significantly in a proper manner. And therefore, the Rasa becomes all the more achievable. See the interconnections of all these 7 schools, right? I think we have overshot time. It's been more than an hour. I should stop here. It was just an attempt to show you a brief overview of the 7 schools of Indian poetics. We have missed out so much, really missed out so much, because it's a task for an entire semester probably, and what has to be done in one semester we have tried to do in 1 hour. So it's but let me give you some reading resources as your tradition goes. For a very very primary and easy reading of Indian poetics, I suggest an introduction to the study of Indian poetics by M.S. Kushwaha and Sanjay Kumar Mishra. An introduction to the study of Indian poetics by Professor M.S. Kushwaha and Sanjay Kumar Mishra. अच्छा, थोड़ा डीप में समझना है कॉन्सेप्ट्स को, तो my teacher, Professor Avdesh Kumar Singh, the founder head of our department, has this book in Hindi, संस्कृत आलोचना की भूमिका. संस्कृत आलोचना की भूमिका by Avdesh Kumar Singh. और गहराई में समझना है, then you have something as ultimate as Indian Conceptual Framework by Professor Kapil Kapoor. Literary Theory, Indian Conceptual Framework by Professor Kapil Kapoor. Kapil Kapoor sir, Padma Bhushan Kapil Kapoor rather, a living legend, who initiated the Department of Comparative Poetics at JNU back in 1994-95, when Indian poetics as a subject did not exist in English departments across the country. He was the pioneer to start discussing Indian poetics course at JNU with his MA students. Okay, and this book is an outcome of his discussions with his students at JNU, and he goes into minute things, minute classification, minute discussions. So difficult to comprehend in the first go, but if you sustain yourselves, certainly. For my research personally, this has proved to be a pivotal resource. So those of you who wish to explore Indian poetics slightly in detail, uh, of course there are dozens of other resources, but if I have to list out 3 or 4 important ones, then these are 3-4 important ones. Apart from these, Ambedkar Open University, Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University has its SLM, self-learning material, on certificate course in Indian Poetics. We had all, some 5-6 of us had contributed for that book. There are 4 books on Indian Poetics. PDF is available on internet. You just type BAOU Indian Poetics SLM. BAOU Indian Poetics SLM. And there are 4 volumes of books on Indian Poetics. Okay, they are also given in a very simple language, and free PDFs are available. They also will be very helpful to you. Of course, my mail ID is there with in the PPT, and of course with Megha Madam and others. So your emails or queries through phones are also welcome at any time. My best wishes once again. Sorry for being late to join because of all these technical glitches. I hope it has not been a very boring session, and only very slightly boring session. My best wishes to all of you. Thank you so much.